They called her the bus conductor's daughter. Poor, silent, and unwanted. No one knew that one day she would return not to beg, but to own the company that once destroyed her father's life. The day began before the sun. Roosters cried, pots clanged. The air felt cold. "Zara, wake up," Baba Musa called softly. His voice was warm, but his eyes were tired. "Before we begin this heart-touching story, don't forget to show some love. Hit that subscribe button, tap the like, and tell us where you're watching from. Now, let's dive in." I opened my eyes and sat up. Our roof leaked when it rained. The room smelled of soap and smoke. He tied a faded scarf around his neck. His bus conductor badge hung by a string. The metal was scratched and dull. "Eat first," he said, placing Gary and groundnuts. I nodded and ate fast. He watched me, smiling a little. "School first," he always said. "Dream big, but walk straight." We left together and stepped into the street. Our neighborhood woke with us. New day, same struggle, same hope. Our landlord, Mr. Ori, leaned on a cane. He blocked the narrow path with a grin. "Rent is late, Baba," he said. "I will pay," Baba answered. He spoke with care, never rude. "By Friday, work will be good today." The landlord chuckled and scratched his beard. "Friday has many faces," he said. He stepped aside and let us pass. The bus park smelled of oil and dust. Hawkers shouted. Drivers cursed the air. Buses snorted like angry goats. Our company was Blue River Transport. Paint flaked off the logo on every bus. The letters carried old pride and fresh shame. The boss stood near the office door. He wore a white shirt, too bright for morning. His gold watch flashed in the sun. "Late again, conductor," the boss said. His name was Mr. Okoro. People called him chairman behind his back. Baba bowed his head. "Good morning, sir," he said gently. "I am on time. We start now." The boss waved us away. He looked at me with a slow smile. "Ah, the little scholar," he said. I held my books close to my chest. His smile felt cold like river stones. I looked down and said nothing. The driver, old Jana, revved the engine. "Let's move," he shouted. "People need work." Passengers climbed in, filling the seats fast. I sold tickets for small coins. My fingers moved quick like birds. I learned to count fast and clean. "Your father has a good heart," one woman said. She wore blue wrappers and strong perfume. "Pray he keeps it safe." We drove through the city's veins. Streets hummed with life and danger. Motorbikes danced between buses like flies. At a red light, a little boy begged. He tapped the window and smiled. Baba gave him bread from his pocket. The light turned green. A police truck rolled by, loud and slow. Men inside stared with blank faces. Back at the park, I ran to school. I reached the gate as the bell rang. Dust clung to my feet like shame. My school uniform was neat but faded. Some girls laughed at the patches. I kept my head up and walked on. In class, I wrote every word. The chalk squeaked. The fan shook above us. I loved the sound of pages turning. After school, I returned to the park. Baba was in line for the last trip. He looked tired, shoulders bent, and still proud. "Come," he said. "Sit by me." We shared a bottle of water, warm and sweet. Even warm water can taste like mercy. Sometimes, the boss sent me errands. "Take this envelope to my office," he'd say. He liked to test how fast I ran. That afternoon, he called me again. His office sat above the loading area, up a rusty stair, behind a thin door. He handed me a stack of receipts. "Place them in the blue cabinet," he said. His eyes watched me like a cat. The cabinet door stuck for a moment. I tugged until it opened wide. Inside lay files, boxes, and one red ledger. A smell of damp paper rose. I stacked the receipts and reached deeper. My fingers brushed the red book. The ledger looked old and heavy. Dust danced when I pulled it out. "Leave that," the boss snapped. He snatched it from my hands. His grip was tight, almost shaking. "Mind your place, little one." I nodded and stepped back. But I had seen one page. Numbers, dates, and a small name. Musa. That night, my mind would not rest. Why was Baba's our name inside that book? Why did the boss fear that page? The next morning, the sky was gray. Rain seemed close, like a secret. We ran to the park under low clouds. A man in a brown suit waited. He spoke to the boss in whispers. They kept glancing down at the buses. Baba climbed into our bus with care. He checked the tickets, checked the seats. His hands moved fast but soft. We started the route like every day. Then the driver's radio crackled. A voice shouted, "All buses. Checkpoint ahead." Police waved us to the side. Guns hung from their shoulders like angry branches. Their faces looked bored and hard. An officer opened our ticket box. He searched every corner and smiled. He pulled out a small brown envelope. Money spilled onto the floor. Thick bundles, tied with rubber bands. More than a conductor could earn in months. The bus went silent like a held breath. Passengers stared at the money and at Baba. The officer turned slowly to him. "Where did you get this?" he asked. His voice was calm, like a knife. Baba raised his hands, palms open. "I don't know," he said softly. "I count coins. I don't touch envelopes." The boss arrived in his shiny car. He stepped down like a king. He looked at the money and shook his head. "I warned you," the boss said. He sounded sad, but his eyes were bright. "This company is not for thieves." The officer took Baba's arm. The handcuffs clicked like small doors closing. I cried out and grabbed my father. "I don't know this money," he said. His voice did not shake. "I swear by my name." They pushed him toward the police truck. People began to whisper and point. Some believed the scene. Some did not. I looked at the boss and trembled. "You know he is honest," I said. My voice broke like thin glass. "Honesty must be proven," he replied. He wiped dust from his shoes. "Let the court decide." They drove away with my father. The bus park shrank around me. Noise turned into a dull, far echo. I stood alone, drenched in dust and shame. Rain started, slow and cold. It washed my face but not my pain. I ran to the office with burning feet. I climbed the stairs 2 at a time. The door was locked, but the window was loose. I pushed it and slipped inside. The room smelled like cologne and paper. The desk, the cabinet, the red ledger. My hands shook as I pulled the drawer. It slid open with a tired groan. Inside lay the ledger and many keys. I opened the book where I had seen the name. I traced the numbers with my finger. There were deductions, fines, and shares held. Shares held? For whom? Next to Baba's name, a tiny stamp. Deferred employee equity, it said. I flipped more pages, heart racing fast. There were payments to officers and gifts. There were tickets that never existed. Tears blurred the ink and lines. Then, something fell from the back cover. A small black and white photo slid out. A woman stood by a bus, smiling wide. She wore a thin chain with a round anklet charm. Her eyes looked like mine. I turned the photo over. In faded pen, someone had written, "Aisha, our bright star." My mother's name was Aisha. Footsteps sounded in the corridor. Voices came closer, deep and angry. I stuffed the ledger under my shirt. The door opened. The boss walked in. He froze when he saw me there. His gold watch flashed like a warning. "What are you doing?" he asked. His voice was soft, but his jaw clenched. "Do you like trouble?" I faced him and held out the photo. "Who is this?" I said. "Where did you get this?" He took the photo from my hand. For a second, his gaze softened. Then the softness vanished like smoke. "She was a staff," he said. "Long ago. She left us." He tried to slide the photo into his pocket. I reached and grabbed the anklet charm. It broke from the photo edge and fell. I picked it up and held it tight. "That is mine," he said. He reached for it again. Eyes narrowed. But I pulled back and hid it. "Leave now," he said coolly. "Your father will answer to the police." He opened the door and called a guard. I ran past them and down the stairs. I clutched the charm in my fist. It pressed into my skin like truth. Outside, the rain came harder. Water ran in lines through the dust. People rushed for shelter, heads down. I stood under the bus shed, shivering. The world felt huge and cruel. But the charm felt warm in my hand. I looked at the tiny design. It was a circle with 3 small lines. My mother used to draw it on my books. I remembered her voice and laughter. I remembered her stories about brave girls. "Small steps," she said. "Strong heart." The guard shouted from the office. "Come back here," he called. He began to run toward me. I turned and fled into the market. I moved between stalls like wind, tomatoes, cloth, hot oil, loud voices. I reached the back of the building. There was another old door, half broken. I pushed it open with my shoulder. Inside sat dusty chairs and a safe. A cleaning woman looked up, surprised. She recognized me and frowned. "Child, what are you doing?" she asked. Her name was Auntie Grace. She sometimes slipped me bread at lunch. "They took my father," I told her. I showed her the charm with shaking hands. Her eyes widened at the sight. "Aisha's mark," she whispered. She touched the charm, almost tender. Then she grabbed my wrist hard. "Listen to me, Zara," she said. Her voice turned fierce, like a drum. "There are secrets in this place." "What secrets?" I asked, heart pounding. "Tell me, please," I begged. "I must help my father." She looked at the door, then the safe. She lowered her voice until it shook. "Your mother worked here years ago." She swallowed and went on. "She died after an accident on our route. There was no proper report. Some of us wanted the truth," she said. "But the chairman kept it hidden. The ledger holds stains. No rain can wash." My chest felt tight and hot. "Who is the chairman?" I asked. "Is it the boss upstairs?" "Not him," she said softly. "He obeys a bigger man." She leaned closer. Breath held. Before she could say the name, footsteps thudded in the hall. Keys scratched at the lock. Auntie Grace pushed me behind a shelf. "Stay quiet," she whispered. "Breathe small." The door opened. 2 guards walked in. They searched the room with lazy eyes. They joked about the rain and money. Then one opened the safe and grunted. He pulled out a velvet box. Inside lay another anklet charm, shining. He smiled and closed the box. "Chairman wants this," he said. They left, still laughing. The door shut. With a heavy sigh, I came out shaking. Auntie Grace wiped my face with cloth. "You must leave now," she said. I nodded slowly and turned to go. Then my gaze fell on the far desk. A drawer was slightly open, like a mouth. I slid it and found a small envelope. Inside lay a typed note. Stamped. Transfer of deferred equity employee. Musa. There was a second line in ink. On instruction from chairman, hold until claim expires. Signed with a scribble and a seal. My heart hammered in my chest. They owed my father shares. They had hidden them for years. I slipped the note into my book. I thanked Auntie Grace with teary eyes. "I will come back," I said. "Come back stronger," she replied. "Come back with light." She squeezed my hand and let me go. Outside, the rain had stopped. Clouds broke and let the sun smile. But my world still felt dark. As I reached the corner, I froze. The boss stood at the top of the stairs. He held something small and silver. It was an anklet charm on a chain. It matched the one in my pocket. He stared at it with a faraway look. Then he turned, opened his drawer wider, and sighed. I saw a framed picture, half hidden beneath files. I stepped closer, silent as a cat. It was my mother again, smiling. And standing beside her, younger, leaner, bold, was the real chairman of Blue River, the same man who now ruled the city council, the same man who always said, "We serve the people," the same man everyone feared to name. The door creaked. He looked up and saw me. His face froze. I held up the anklet and whispered, "This belonged to my mother." His eyes turned hard as stone. He reached for the phone with a slow hand. "Call security," he said. The floor shook under my feet. I clutched the charm until it cut my palm. And in that moment, I made a vow. I would not cry. I would not run forever. I would come back for my father. I would come back for the truth. I would come back for everything they stole. I would return, so they could not look down again. And I would not return as a girl. I would return as power. I would return as the flame they feared. The guard's footsteps hammered the stairs. The boss stared, lips tight, eyes sharp. The phone still rang. I stepped backward toward the broken door. I slid out just as the guard entered. He shouted my name into the empty hallway. I ran, not with fear, but with purpose. As I ran, I felt the charm pulse. It felt like a heartbeat calling me forward. And in my head, one thought rang like a bell. The chairman knew my mother. What else did he know about me? I reached the road and stopped. A police truck turned the corner fast. It screeched to a halt in front of me. The door swung open with a loud clang. An officer stepped out, holding papers high. "Warrant for search," he said, "for the conductor's house." My breath broke in my chest. They were taking everything next. I took one step back and looked up. The billboard above the road showed a smiling face. It was the chairman's face, bright and shining. The caption read, "Justice and Progress." I curled my fingers around the charm. Then I saw it in the corner of his billboard necklace. The same tiny circle with 3 small lines. My mother's mark hung on his neck. Why would the chairman wear it? What bond could tie him to her? The officer raised his hand to grab me. The crowd pressed in, eyes hungry for drama. My heart beat like a drum in a storm. I slipped into the crowd and vanished. I left the park, the buses, the dust. I vanished into a city that never sleeps. And the last thing I saw as I turned the corner was the chairman's smiling face on the board, wearing my mother's mark like a trophy. The chairman wore my mother's anklet mark. What secret bound him to her and to me? Years crawled and then flew. Pain taught me to move fast. Hunger taught me to think clear. I found work at a small kiosk. I sorted phone cards and counted coins. At night, I studied under a kerosene lamp. A woman named Teacher Amma noticed me. She saw my notes, neat and bold. She said, "You have a hawk's eyes." She helped me apply for a scholarship. Her friends gave me books and fees. I cried into my pillow in secret. I won a place in a tech school. I learned how to map routes with code. I learned how to read patterns and lies. Every week, I visited the prison. They kept Baba behind thick bars. We spoke through a small window of rust. "I did not take that money," he said. He smiled, so I would not break. "I will walk free one day." I showed him the equity note. His eyes filled with careful fire. "We will claim what is ours," he said. I carried the anklet charm every day. It warmed in my hand like a promise. I wore it under my shirt on a thread. In school, I met a boy named Ibra. He laughed like a river over stones. He fixed broken circuitry with patient fingers. We talked late about maps, buses, and change. He said, "People need a clean system." I said, "They need clean hearts too." We built an app for route planning. We called it Moyo, meaning heart. It showed safe stops and fair prices. Moyo spread fast among bus riders. Drivers liked the clear, simple routes. Hawkers liked knowing where crowds gathered. Investors came with sharp smiles. They wore fine suits and fine watches. I thought of the boss and stepped back. But we needed money to grow. We took a small seed. With strict rules. I wrote every clause in simple language. I still visited my father each month. The case dragged like a lame leg. The company provided no helpful records. A young lawyer, Kemi, joined our fight. She wore braids and justice in her eyes. She said, "We will not fear the truth." Kemi filed new motions. She demanded the ledger and receipts. Blue River sent excuses and smoke. Moyo grew into Moyo transit systems. We added payment by phone and cards. We added driver rating and safety tips. Cities asked us to help plan traffic. We used satellite data and driver reports. The streets slowly learned new habits. I learned to speak in boardrooms. I learned to break long words into clear sense. I learned to hold a silence like a tool. But powers do not sleep. A wealthy rival created fake news. They said we cheated people and sold data. I stood before cameras and spoke plain. "We do not sell your life," I said. "We protect your path and your coins." Our users believed us. They had walked with us from dust. They knew the feel of lies. Then I heard news from the bus park. Blue River was sinking under debt. Their buses sat with broken engines. I felt no joy. I remembered the women selling bread. I remembered old Jana and his laugh. I called Kemi and asked, "Can we buy them?" She laughed at first, then stopped. She said, "If we raise funds fast." Investors asked, "Why Blue River?" I said, "We know their roots. We can renew." I did not say the truth inside me. Inside me burned a deeper reason. This was the house that kept secrets. This was the house that caged my father. We made a bold plan overnight. We formed a holding group. Riverheart. Moyo would sit on one side, Blue River on the other. Ibra shook his head but smiled. "This is wild," he said. "Wild waters can also wash." We worked without sleep for weeks. We met elders, unions, and city heads. We promised clean service and fair pay. A quiet fund from 2 diaspora women joined. They said, "We rode buses like yours as kids." They added real money and real love. We made an offer to Blue River's board. They laughed the first time and waved us off. We returned with stronger terms and stronger allies. News leaked, and the city buzzed. "Bus girl wants company," the papers said. Some mocked. Some cheered. All watched. Then the chairman stepped forward at last. He had grown grayer and heavier. But his eyes still held iron. He agreed to consider our offer. He set a board meeting for Friday. I marked the date with steady hands. I asked Kemi to push the court again. We needed that ledger to open jaws. We needed that note to find daylight. She filed urgent orders with quiet rage. A junior judge signed the release. We could demand the ledger by Friday morning. On Thursday night, a fire broke out. Blue River's record room burned bright. Papers turned to ash and ghosts. The news called it an accident. The station called it an old wire. I smelled the same old smoke. Kemi drove through the night in the rain. She arrived at my door with wet hair. They say the ledger is gone, she said. I sat on the floor and held my face. I thought of my mother's smile. I thought of the charm and the seal. I stood up slowly, like lifting a tree. No, I said. The truth never burns. Not all of it. I went to see Auntie Grace. She was older now, but her eyes were fire. She took my hands and nodded once. You came back, she said. You brought light, as I asked. She reached under a loose tile. She brought out a cloth-wrapped bundle. It was heavier than I expected. She placed it in my hands and smiled. Not every page was in the record room, she said. I kept some pieces when fear walked here. I kept them for when courage returned. Inside the cloth lay copies. Receipts with names and dates. A list of deferred equity and seals. The chairman's signature appeared everywhere. He had approved deductions from the poor. He had held shares like bait on a hook. I hugged Auntie Grace and cried hard. Tears tasted like salt and metal. She patted my back, steady as a drum. Now go, she told me. Go like thunder. Strike clean. Her hands trembled, but never let go. On Friday morning, the city held its breath. I wore a black suit with simple lines. Under it, I wore my mother's charm. The boardroom was high and bright. Painted smiles looked down from the walls. The chairman sat at the head like a mountain. Directors whispered behind folded papers. The boss from long ago sat near the end. He did not meet my eyes. I placed our offer on the table. I did not speak first. I waited and felt my heartbeat steady. The chairman smiled and said, "Impressive." He spoke like a teacher giving a prize. But this company is a family heirloom. Families change, I replied. Some truths are older than chairs. I slid the copies toward the board. They read in silence for a while. Someone hissed. Someone coughed. Someone tapped a pen too loud. The chairman's smile stiffened like dry bark. These are stolen documents, he said. He looked at me like I was dust. They are records of stolen lives, I said. I kept my voice calm and cool. Equity held back, workers punished. Kemi cleared her throat and stood. Court order allows discovery, she said. Your fire did not wash your hands. The room split like a cracked seed. Some directors stared at the chairman's seal. Others stared at their laps. The boss from before swallowed hard. He looked at me and away again. His gold watch had lost its shine. A board member finally spoke. We cannot ignore this, she said. Her voice was firm. Her jaw set. The chairman's nostrils flared with heat. He tapped the table with one finger. The sound echoed like a slow drum. What do you want? He asked. He knew the answer, but needed time. I gave him none. Ownership, I said. Control, audit, and worker equity. Full investigation, public report. Impossible, he whispered. He glanced at the portraits on the wall. Do you know who I am? I placed my hands on the table. The charm pressed into my skin again. I know who my mother was, I said. Silence filled the room like rising water. Then the boss from before cleared his throat. He looked sick, heavy with years. He pushed a small box across the table. It was the velvet box from the safe. He would not meet the chairman's eyes. This belongs to her, he said. To the bus conductor's daughter. His voice broke like a branch. I opened the box and found the twin charm. It matched mine. Bright and cold. I slipped it into my pocket and breathed. The chairman stood slowly. He leaned forward on both fists. You are bold, he said, almost soft. Boldness is a poor girl's shield, I answered. It kept me alive while you slept. I smiled with no joy. He stared at my face, searching the past. His eyes widened a little, almost tender. Then the tenderness died. We will not sell to you, he said. His voice turned smooth like oil. We will sell to your rival instead. The door opened, and my rival walked in. It was the wealthy man from the fake news. And standing beside him, my friend Ibra. Pain shot through me like lightning. Ibra looked at me with tired eyes. He did not smile. He did not explain. He placed a folder before the board. Bridge capital and clean debt, he said. Immediate fleet repairs and new branding. My throat clenched around a stone. I looked at him and saw regret. I looked at the chairman and saw victory. The board murmured like a restless sea. A director said, "This looks safer." Another said, "Fewer troubles." I wanted to shout, to break the table. But I remembered my father's calm hands. I remembered my mother's gentle courage. I stood straight and cleared my voice. "I have one final thing," I said. I placed a photo on the table. It was the old black and white of my mother. She stood beside a young, lean man. He wore the same face as our chairman. The room fell into a deeper silence. I turned the photo and showed the back. In faded pen, "Aisha, our bright star." The chairman reached for the photo. His hand shook for the first time. His mouth opened, then closed. "Who are you?" he whispered. His eyes searched mine and did not find breath. I unhooked my necklace and placed the charm beside the photo. I lifted my chin and spoke slow. "I am Zara, the bus conductor's daughter. And today, I am also your new CEO." Gasps swept the room like a strong wind. The boss dropped his pen. Ibra's eyes widened and softened at once. The board secretary stood in shock. "On what authority?" he asked, trembling. His hands fumbled through papers and minutes. Kemi laid down a final document. It bore signatures, seals, and a clean total. "Riverheart has acquired controlling shares," she said. The door burst open with a crash. Security rushed in with a court order. A loud voice boomed, "Remove her from the premises." The guard at the front stopped mid-step. He stared at my face, eyes filling with water. He whispered, "Z?" Only my father called me that name. The guard's cap was low, his beard grown. He lifted his head, and I saw him clear. It was Baba, in a guard's uniform, alive, standing, in this house of smoke, looking at me with love and fear. My father stood in a guard's uniform, facing me. And the room waited to see if he would drag me out, or stand by my side. "Z," he said again, voice shaking. His hands trembled like leaves in harmattan wind. He looked from me to the chairman. "Officer," the chairman snapped, "do your job." His voice cracked like ice breaking. Baba did not move. His eyes stayed on my face. Tears shone like tiny lamps. "We follow lawful orders," another guard said. He gripped his baton, unsure and stiff. He looked to Baba for courage. Kemi stepped forward, calm and fierce. "Court order," she asked the intruder. She read it, frowned, and lifted her chin. "This is for our old address," she said. "Wrong venue. Wrong name." Her voice cut the air clean. The board members whispered like birds. Some picked sides with their eyes. Some hid behind cups of water. I opened my palm and showed the charm. I set both anklet pieces on the table. The symbols shone like twin moons. "Before you remove me," I said, "I ask one question of our chairman." I turned to face him full. "Did you know my mother?" I asked. My voice was steady, but my heart pounded. Each beat echoed like a drum of truth. He stared at the charms and the photo. His mouth pressed into a hard line. Then, slowly, he nodded once. A soft cry escaped someone's throat. The boss from long ago bowed his head. Even the rival shifted his weight. "Say her name," I said quietly. The room held its breath again. He looked like a man fighting a river. "Aisha," he whispered. The sound broke from him like a secret. Aisha, our bright star. I closed my eyes for a beat. Warmth and cold rushed through me. Pain and peace met inside my chest. Now tell them the rest, I said. Tell them about the accident. Tell them why you hid the ledger. He gripped the table, knuckles white. The driver was drunk, he said slowly. He was my cousin's boy. Words fell like stones into water. He caused the crash that killed a staff member. We covered it. We paid the family. You lied to my mother's child, I said. You chained my father with false shame. My voice rose, rough with fire. The chairman looked at Baba. Regret washed over his face, heavy and late. I did not know she had a daughter then, he said. You knew enough to display her mark, I replied. On your neck, on your pride. I pointed to the charm on his billboard. He sank into his chair, breathing hard. He looked smaller than his shadow. He looked like a man learning fear. I faced the board calmly. I will not drag this through more flames, I said. We will do 3 things now. 1. I raised a finger. Free and clear the name of my father. Publicly. Today. 2. I continued. Begin a full audit, with open doors. Workers and unions must sit in. 3, I said. We will rebuild Blue River from the engine up. Fair pay, safe buses, clean books. The rival laughed once, sharp and thin. You think a story will move markets? He said. Governance needs money. I smiled without showing teeth. We brought money, I said. We also brought people. I opened the side door with a nod. Union leaders walked in, hats in hand. Women from the market followed, heads high. Mechanics entered, hands stained with oil. Drivers came. Cleaners came. Auntie Grace entered last and lifted her chin. The boardroom swelled with real life. Dust and perfume mixed in the air. Eyes met across lines, old and new. The rival glanced at the chairman. Their deal had counted on silence. The noise of truth shook that table. I want to hear from the workers, a director said. She stood, spine straight, face clear. Do you trust this woman? A mechanic spoke before any leader. I trust the one who rides our bus, he said. I trust the one who counts coins right. A woman from the market raised her hand. She bought from us when she had nothing, she said. She did not ask for a discount. Even a driver from a rival company nodded. Moyo made routes fair, he said. Fewer fights. Better nights. Ibra took a small step toward me. His eyes were wet with shame. I made a mistake, he said softly. He opened his folder and tore documents. He turned to the rival and shook his head. I will not stand with lies. The rival cursed under his breath. He gathered his papers fast and angry. He stormed out, door slamming like thunder. The chairman watched it all unfold. He lifted his gaze and met mine. He gave a slow, bitter nod. You have the room, he said quietly. His voice carried age and gravel. You also have a storm coming. I grew in storms, I replied. Rain taught me to run and to plant. I turned to face my father. Baba took off his cap with shaking hands. He walked to me, slow but sure. He gathered me into an embrace. The room blurred as tears filled my eyes. He smelled like soap and dust. He felt like home and strength. I am proud of you, he whispered. Your mother would be too. His voice steadied my heart again. Kemi held up her phone for recording. Say it now, she told the board. Clear his name on record. The director who stood earlier nodded. Blue River apologizes, she said. We wrongfully accused Mr. Musa. The room clapped. First soft, then strong. Some clapped with open hands. Some clapped with open hearts. The chairman cleared his throat. "I will step aside during the audit," he said. He spoke as if lifting a heavy stone. The boss from long ago raised his hand. "Take my resignation," he said. He slid a letter across the table. Auntie Grace stepped forward with a smile. "I will serve on the audit team," she said. "We will follow the money like a river." I thanked her with a long look. Her courage had saved our bridge. Her kindness had lit our road. We went outside to face the press. Cameras flashed like silent lightning. Mics pointed at my mouth like spears. I spoke in short, clear words. "Workers will receive their shares," I said. "Fares will be fair. Buses will be safe." A reporter asked, "Who are you?" "Really?" I held the charms in my hand. I raised them high so all could see. "I am the bus conductor's daughter," I said. "My name is Zara Musa, and I am the CEO of Blue River." The crowd roared like a waterfall. Some shouted my name with joy, some cried, some laughed. We began the hard work at once. Engines came apart under bright lights. Mechanics wrote lists with greasy fingers. We rehired drivers with clean records. We trained conductors on safety and respect. We painted buses with a new logo. It was a river shaped like a heart, water flowing into many lanes. A promise to carry, not to crush. We opened books to the workers. Every month, we shared the accounts. Small shares began to appear in wallets. Market women got vendor spaces at stops. Security received fair schedules and rest. Cleaners got boots and masks, not just mops. There were fights and late nights. There were threats from old powers. But we built a wall of truth and time. One evening, after a long day, I walked to the bus park alone. I listened to engines hum like bees. A little boy tapped my arm. He carried bread in a plastic bag. "Madam, would you like one?" he asked. I bought two and gave one back. "For you," I said, smiling. He grinned and ran off light-footed. I saw our new posters on the wall. They showed drivers, cleaners, and guards. Under them, a line read, "We move together." I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was the chairman, older in the dusk. He had no entourage, no mask. "I have something to return," he said. He held out a folded paper. It was my mother's handwritten note. "I found this hidden in my desk," he said. "I kept it because I was weak." His voice cracked like an old door. I opened the note slowly. It was a prayer in small, neat letters. It asked for courage, truth, and bread. I looked up and met his eyes. "You can still choose courage," I said. He nodded, shame and hope wrestling in him. "I will testify about the cover-up," he said. "I will face the court and the city." He bowed his head, like a man in rain. "Do it for the workers," I replied. "Do it for yourself, too. Even the river forgives, but it still flows." We walked back to the office. Baba waited by the door, smiling. He looked at the chairman and then at me. "Come home," he said to me softly. "I made stew and hot tea." His voice wrapped me like a blanket. At home, the roof still leaked, but we laughed under a basin's dance. We ate stew with bread and thanks. I placed both anklet charms on the table. They caught the light, like tiny moons. I tied them together with a red thread. "This is for Mama," he said, "for every road she did not finish. For every truth she asked us to carry." Baba kissed his fingers and touched the charms. "Rest well, Aisha," he whispered. "Your child walked the river for you." The next morning, workers painted the last bus. Children watched, clapping and singing a tune. A driver leaned from the window and shouted, "Boarding!" I stood on the platform and looked at the crowd. Faces new and old smiled back. Tears warmed my cheeks, not from sorrow. I stepped onto the bus and held the rail. For a second, I saw Mama's face in the glass. She smiled and nodded once, proud and calm. I turned to the driver and said, "Let's go." He started the engine, and it purred. The city opened before us like a book. As we rolled out, I felt a tap. It was Ibra, holding 2 travel mugs. He offered one with a small, hopeful smile. "I am sorry," he said. I followed fear and easy money. He looked at the floor, then up. "Now teach fear your name." He pointed at the app on his phone. "New features are ready," he said. "Safer stops. Night routes. Panic button. Let's push them," I replied. "Every heart deserves a safe ride." Our hands moved, our minds steady. The bus stopped at a market. Women cheered and waved their cloths. A child shouted, "Auntie Zara, I saw you on TV." I laughed and waved back. Light filled me like morning sun. The pain had not vanished, but it had changed shape. It had taken a new name: strength, purpose, river. That evening, we held a small gathering. We stood on the same platform where I once hid. We dedicated the company to service and truth. I spoke last, with few words. "May our wheels carry hope," I said. "May our books stay open. May our hearts stay soft." The crowd hummed a simple song. Voices rose like lanterns in the dark. The city listened and breathed easier. Baba took the microphone, shy and brave. "I was a bus conductor," he said. "Now I am a proud father." He looked at me, eyes bright. "Small steps, strong heart," he said. "Just as her mother taught us." We let the people return home. Night folded the park in cool arms. Engines slept. Stars watched. I sat on the platform with the charms. I tied them to the underside of the signboard. They chimed in the wind like quiet bells. Kemi sat beside me with a grin. "Tomorrow, we start the audit," she said. "Truth has work to do." I nodded and hugged her tight. "Thank you for standing," I said. She laughed. "Thank you for walking." The chairman came to sign his statement. He placed his ring on the table. "I will earn my name again," he murmured. We finished the papers and sealed them. The city would read them in daylight. The river of truth would meet the sea. I rose and faced the buses. Each looked like a promise kept. Each carried a story and a path. "Ready, CEO?" Baba asked behind me. He said the title with gentle pride. It did not feel heavy anymore. "Ready," I said, and meant it. We turned off the lights and locked the gate. The night held us like a friend. The road outside whispered softly. It promised more storms and more dawns. We would meet them, bus by bus, heart by heart. Do not mock small beginnings. A clean heart and steady courage can turn dust into roads, and pain into power. Serve people with truth, and the river of life will carry you home. If you enjoyed this story, like and subscribe for more African folktales.